Common run problem number 7 is you experience a tech failure of some kind. We talked about this one last week on the bike version of this conversation, but a tech failure on the run course is usually your watch dying in a longer race. It can be your heart rate sensor beginning to malfunction or your run power meter beginning to malfunction. Coach Chris, if there's some tech that we're used to having and we're out on the run course, how do we handle that?
Yeah, I think one common issue we see a lot is, just forgetting to charge stuff and batteries dying. So make sure you have that as part of your plan to juice up things ahead of time. I've done whole YouTube videos on like the little Garmin settings to change to boost the battery life. So if you're worried about that, definitely look into that, and make sure you pack your charger and spare batteries. Now with electronic shifting, especially too, all the time. I've been guilty of that. I was at a ride. I was actually bike marshaling for a local half marathon here, and I was charging one of my batteries, and I forgot to put it back on my bike. And so I rolled out the door, and all of a sudden, like, missing a battery, can't shift my gear. Luckily, I had the SRAM shifting, so I could take the battery from my front derailleur and put it on my rear, and I at least could shift my rear gears on the bike. But that's a bike issue. So I would say, yeah, for tech stuff, obviously the battery thing is usually the main tech issue that people deal with. The other issue, though, we have a lot of endurance athletes who are so dependent on like seeing their heart rate to gauge their pace, and we get so tied to that. And I'm a big tech geek. I love my data. I look at my heart rate powers data all the time, but learning how to pace yourself without that is important, whether it's just for dealing with those situations when things go wrong, or just having a second way to assess things. Because oftentimes if you have like an optical heart rate on your wrist and all of a sudden the heart rate doesn't look correct, like some devices will have issues like cadence lock and whatnot, the PPG technology, the optical technology is not as good as an ECG, a chest strap. So for heart rate stuff, what I encourage runners to really focus on is learning how to assess your pace based on your respiratory rate. So if you're not familiar with like asymmetric breathing, is something that I talk a lot about, is, if you run and you count how many steps you take as you breathe out and how many steps you take as you breathe in, you can correlate your breathing rate with your cadence. And that very closely ties to a heart rate zone. So if you're running at a really high intensity, you might be breathing out 2 steps and breathing in 2 steps, like, and that's zone 5 for most people. If you're at a 3-2 breathing rate, like you're exhaling for 3 steps, inhaling for 2, that asymmetric rate, that's usually a zone 4, like a racing zone. And then if you're doing like an Ironman or longer distance, ultra marathon, going down to a 3-3 or a 3-4 asymmetric breathing rate is ideal, because then you can just learn how to deal with, the environmental conditions. You can deal with, when you get cramps and other issues, you can still gauge your own effort level without needing that heart rate, just in case that heart rate monitor is acting up on you. But I also like that tip because it makes you focus on your breathing. And if you get more inhaling, you get more oxygen in your system, you're going to get more energy.
Just breathe. Just breathe, baby.
A body hack. Yep, just breathe. Because 9 times out of 10, just breathing and getting more oxygen into your system will help you, adjust for cramping, fueling, other issues, but also whenever those tech issues go wrong. And I use it competitively, actually, when I'm in a running event and I'm running next to somebody who I might be competitive with, I listen to their breathing rate. And if I can keep my breathing rate more in check than theirs, then I know I'll have that extra gear later on in the run. So competitive athletes can use it as well in some fun ways.
Yeah, good stuff. The other one I've seen that I find very helpful, and I'll share this with runner friends of mine that I don't have a Garmin watch, don't have a heart rate monitor, but they're getting more into it, and they kind of want to know how to gauge their effort. There's videos on YouTube from cycling magazines, running magazines. One in particular that I saw has a cyclist on a indoor bike trainer, and she's out loud reading a book as she's pedaling, and it shows you like how well is she able to talk while pedaling and correlating that to a heart rate zone. So obviously in zone 2, she's able to read the book just fine without it sounding like there's any break in the text. Zone 3, there's a little bit of huffing and puffing, but she's still reading it very effectively. Zone 4, there's quite a bit of breathing in between words. It's taking her a little while longer to finish complete sentences. And in zone 5 and zone 6, she's barely getting anything out at all because of the effort making her run out of breath. And so finding a video like that just to give you a gauge of, okay, I'm out on course, my watch has died, I'm kind of interested in how hard am I pushing. How well can you talk to the people around you? How well can you make a comment to somebody at an aid station or an athlete going by you, or a spectator going by? Are you labored in conversation, or are you easily holding conversation? That's also a really good way I like to self-regulate. Okay, what RP am I at? What zone am I probably in right now?